Greetings. I hope everyone is doing extremely well. I am very well, thanks be to God, and I'm finishing the third week of my pilgrimage here in the Holy Land. Taking kind of like a chill, relaxing day today because I've been out and about for the past couple of days. I think yesterday I walked like 20 kilometers and the day before like 18 kilometers. So I think I'm just gonna relax today and give my legs a little bit of a rest. And then tomorrow I'm so excited. I'm going on my probably one and only official tour here. I like to do things on my own and get to places on my own, but this tour I'm taking tomorrow is to a few places that I think may be more challenging to go to. So I'm really excited to kind of go on a tour. So I wanted to summarize what's been happening over the past week. It's my third week here on my pilgrimage in the Holy Land. I had a couple of things that were left over from like the second week that I forgot to mention that I'm just going to put in here. And well, I'll mix them in because they kind of fit with everything else. Or maybe I won't mix them in. Okay, no, I'm not going to mix them in. Well, the night before, actually my third week started, I think it was the night before, we had a lady in our dorm that was staying here, and unfortunately she had some health issues. So it was nice that we were able to all be here with her because somebody went down and they called the ambulance to come, and there was a bunch of people that came in the room and we were able to help her and make sure she was eating something, drinking something. She had like low sugar. So they took her to the hospital and she spent the night and she got an IV and she came the next day back to the dorm to pick up some of her belongings. So it was nice to see that she was doing okay and everything like that. Just a little bit of a kind of commotion that evening. But it was nice that we were all able to just be with her. And I guess that's one of the neat things if you are traveling on your own to being in a dorm. And that's what I've found out about being in a dorm. I didn't really expect this to happen. I kind of thought I should have thought it would have happened. But we've all kind of been supportive of each other, you know. We've kind of formed like a little family together here in the dorm with everybody, and as people come and go, but there's been a general sense of community here and people look out for each other and check in and exchange information. And I've made a number of new contacts from all the wonderful people that I've met in my dorm. And yeah, it's been a beautiful blessing of being here. And then the second thing that I wanted to share was the Lord has introduced me to a couple of tour guides here in the area. One actually shared a dorm, and then another one I met through a relative who introduced me to them being here. And it was, again, just such a blessing, especially the one through a relative. I didn't even know they were a tour guide. And then when I went to meet up with them, I found that out, and they gave me so much helpful information about traveling here and ways to get around and tips and things like that. And it really, I shouldn't be amazed at this because I know God works all over all the time, but it was really like God sitting me down with somebody from the area and being like, here's what you need to know, like everything I need to know to be safe and to get around. That's what it felt like. It felt like God's like, I'm gonna provide this person for you. You know, even though I've done the research on my own. Yeah, and I think God's doing that constantly helping us through other people that we may not even like realize it's Him. But that was a clear, blatant sign of God sending me this tour guide to like give me all this help for free. So I was very, very grateful for that. Okay, so now on to what happened. So I went to the Dead Sea and I absolutely loved it. I really, really, really want to go back again. It was an amazing experience. I didn't go on a tour. I was able to go with some people from the dorm, so they were able to kind of helped me navigate how to get there. And it's fairly simple. It was like a half an hour bus ride from here. And then we walked about 15 minutes to the beach. We arrived at the perfect time of day, and the weather was just beautiful. I think it was maybe like 20 degrees. And it was amazing. It was beautiful landscape, like mountains in the distance, and the water was just a beautiful blue, light blue shade. And yeah, you just floating there, you literally float. It was so neat. And then floating on your stomach, and it was a beautiful experience. And then we got to put mud all over, because that's what they say to do when you're there. And then when we washed the mud off after, my skin for like a few days after, I don't know if it's still that way, but it felt just smooth, just like fresh, like a little baby's skin. So it was a really, really neat experience, and I highly recommend it if you are able to come to this area. Then another friend I was talking to, she asked me about the Potter's Field. She said, did you look into where that is? And that's a location in the Bible where it was a piece of land that was bought with the money that Jesus used to betray Jesus, that he got when he betrayed Jesus. And it's a thought that he's possibly buried there. That's where Judas kind of despaired. So I wanted to find that spot, and it wasn't, I don't think it's a huge tourist destination. And obviously when I went there, I was completely alone. There's like a little monastery there. And it was a real profound experience being there. And I could see I just sat, there was a stone that was like cushioned, almost like a chair. I felt it was like meant for me to sit there. And I just sat there, and you could see Gethsemane, where Judas betrayed Jesus, like far off in the distance. And there were trees, just trees around. And made me think of what Judas did. And literally I was crying. I was weeping when I was there. And I was actually saying, like, don't do it, Judas. Like, don't do it. And it was a really profound experience being there. And it made me just have so much love for people in the world, and not wanting anyone to ever despair of God's love for them. So yeah, that's what I love about going to these places. Like, I just sat there for a long time, and I can still see myself kind of sitting there on this hill slope, That was a beautiful, but like sad, but beautiful in a way, a strange way to kind of explain it, but being there. And then here's a neat experience of how, God arranges things. And when I was first looking for the Potter's Field, I ended up going like half an hour in the wrong direction, and then had to come half an hour back. And I hadn't eaten lunch that day. And it's something I said, you should never not do. That's how you say it. And so I was feeling like really nauseous. I was feeling dizzy. I needed to use a washroom. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to make it back. And I was just praying to God to help me to get to a washroom. And on the way back, I don't normally do this, but there was a lady sitting out on like a porch. And I was like, please, can I use your washroom? And she's like, well, I'm a guest here. And, she doesn't really know me. But then she said, yeah, you can come on in. So I was so grateful. I just felt so much better. And we ended up connecting, and we're probably going to go out for coffee sometime this week. So an unusual experience. Again, why God had me, walk, well, not that he had me, but that I walked that way and ended up meeting her. Just, we'll see, where that goes. But another neat thing of how even me just getting sick or whatever ended up blossoming into this, like, friendship with this woman. Okay, another neat experience of God leading me is there was one of the things I had researched to do was to visit the pool of Bethsaida, where Jesus had healed a sick man. And I kind of was like, oh, there's so many things to do, and I don't really know much about the pool. I might not go there. But again, I was needing to use a washroom. I think I know now where all the public toilets are, like in the area. But I needed to use a washroom, so I stopped in to the area which was the entrance to the pool of Bethsaida. And they had a public washroom there. And then afterwards I was like, maybe I should check out. I'm here at this place. So I ended up researching it. It was only like 12 shekels, which isn't a lot to go in. So I thought, well, I'll go in. And it was a real, even just being there religiously, thinking this is where Jesus was, where he healed the man. Archaeologically, it was just amazing to see that site. And then I discovered that on that site is the Church of St. Anne, which they believe was built over where St. Anne and St. Joachim, the grandparents of Jesus and the parents of Mary, lived, and where Mary was possibly born. And I had thought I had visited the Church of St. Anne, where that place was, but this is kind of the place. So I was so thankful that the Lord inspired me to visit that place. And it was amazing being there. Again, it was really, really, really special. And I am named after her, St. Anne. She's my patron. And a few months ago, back in March, we're now in April, so a month ago, I had visited her tomb where her remains are. They believe that they were taken from Jerusalem to France, southern France. So it was really special for me to be able to be there and to see what was possibly her house and where the Virgin Mary was born. And again, it was something that was on my list. I was like, well, I don't think I'll go here, but I'm so glad that God led me there. It was beautiful. Then I was able to I took a tour up kind of all around the Mount of Olives, and it is so hilly and valley, so many hills and valleys in this area. Like literally, I think yesterday it said I walked up 160 floors or something, because you're just walking up and down, up and down. And yeah, I have a real sense of what it was like to walk up the Mount of Olives. And I visited the church there. I visited different things there. So up on the Mount of Olives, they have a church called the Dominus Flevit. I think it means Latin for the Lord wept. It's where they believe Jesus looked out over Jerusalem and wept over its destruction. So I visited there. They have the Pater Noster Church, again Latin for Our Father, in Our Father, and that they think that Christ could have taught his disciples the Our Father up there. So I was able to visit that, was up there. They have the Chapel of the Ascension, is a spot where they believe Christ ascended into heaven when he left 40 days after he rose from the dead, and he left. They have a little rock where they think his footprint was. Yeah, so that's all kind of, and then up there too, they have Bethphage, where they think was a starting point where Jesus got on the donkey on Palm Sunday and rode into Jerusalem, and people were waving palms and saying, Hosanna in the highest. So I think that was all. Oh, I went to the tomb of Mary this is all the kind of the same area, where they think Mary was laid when her life on earth ended, and then where she was taken body and soul up into heaven. It's very close to Gethsemane, and there's a grotto there. So there's a lot to do in that area. And and a Jewish cemetery. I got to see this huge cemetery with all these above ground tombs where people are buried there from way back in the Old Testament times. So that was it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. That whole, I just love the Mount of Olives in the Kidron Valley. There's so much there. And the tombs of prophets from the Bible, and King David's son, his tomb was there. So yeah, that was, in the past couple of days, that's kind of what I've been doing. It's just visiting all those areas in the Kidron Valley and the Mount of Olives, which is east and south, I think. Yeah. Of Jerusalem. Yeah, that's kind of what what I have been doing the past few days, but then I want to end off with a really kind of interesting experience that happened to me yesterday. Oh my heavens. So anyway, I wanted to go visit the tomb of Lazarus, and that is the place where Jesus raised his friend Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus was the brother of Martha and Mary. So that's where his tomb is. So I had researched it just kind of briefly, and I knew, like, you know, I found it on Google Maps, and it said like it was an hour walk, and I was like, oh, I can do that. You know, I've been walking so much. I'm fine with doing that. So as I'm walking along, you go up the Mount of Olives, and then you start going down the other side. And it started to get into an area that was a little bit different from what I had been in. The area felt a little more like a Palestine area, not what I was used to from living in, you know, the Jerusalem area. And then the map took me down a hill, and then I was supposed to turn the road, but there was a giant wall there, and the map was taking me on the road, like through the wall. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can go like around the wall. And I started walking. And then a taxi driver, there was a bunch of kind of buses and taxis there. He was like, no, you have to go through that gateway. So I was like, oh, okay. So I went through the gateway, and it was kind of a spinning gateway with bars. It looked kind of like a highly high security area. And again, I don't know why I didn't clue in what was going on, but I was like, what's happening here? And I kind of kept walking, and I think I'm caught up in, like, I'm still trying to find my way. I'm not sure fully what's going on. So a really kind lady and her mother, a kind lady and her son, they were like, oh no, after I got through that time where they're like, you want to go down that road. So I was like, oh, thank you. And I kept walking. And then I was like, I think I just passed into another country. And it's still, I don't know, it's still not fully registering with me. But as I'm walking, like, the area looks different. There's a different feel than what I was in before. And I think I'm still just like caught up in trying to get there. And then there is still thoughts coming to me of like, you passed another country, like, are you allowed to be here? Like, how are you gonna get back? And I passed over at a checkpoint. That gate was a checkpoint from Israel into Palestine. And I didn't even know it. That's the crazy thing. And I think if I would have like known that I had to pass into another country, I might not have done it, just unsure of how that was all going to work out. But I ended up walking like a half an hour from that checkpoint to the tomb of Lazarus. And it was a beautiful experience visiting the tomb of Lazarus. It was just amazing being there and thinking this is where Jesus like spent time with his friends, the family he loved was there. It was really nice. But I also was kind of like, am I allowed to be here? Am I going to be able to cross back over fine? So I still had that kind of feeling while I was visiting there. So I stayed maybe for about half an hour, and then I started to walk back again. But as I was starting to walk back, I had been down in the tomb, and sometimes when you go down, your internet gets a little bit thrown off balance. So when I came back up, my internet like wasn't working. And that's how I arrived. I followed like the maps, the Google Maps, and that was my way back. And I was like, oh no. And I started walking probably for like a couple minutes, and it still wasn't working. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to do this. And then I thought, what am I gonna do? Well, I said, the back at where I was, the tomb of Lazarus, there's a church there run by Franciscans, so there are brothers there. I thought I can ask the brothers, you know, I can ask the brothers for help, or there was a tour there, so I could ask someone on the tour. So I started to turn around, and as I was turning around, the internet kicked in. So I was like, oh, thanks be to God. and then I saw my map again and I saw where I was headed. So I walked the half an hour back to the checkpoint. I had to show my passport and the proof that I was allowed to be in Israel, and I got through the checkpoint smoothly and got back to my destination okay. So that was just it's just kind of embarrassing almost to think about that I didn't realize I passed into another country. And that whole experience. But an interesting thing that happened because of that, not that I planned for any of this to happen, was walking back from the tomb, back through there. I don't know, I had almost this confidence in me that kind of wasn't there before. I said, I know this area, I've walked it. And then even passing the checkpoint and entering into that, which felt like a little bit of Palestinian area, but it was Israeli, I felt more comfortable, and I felt like I had this courage in me that I didn't have before. And I even felt that going back to Jerusalem. So that experience changed me. It did something to me. It gave me this confidence, yes, I've forged my way into another country. I was okay. I survived. I lived to tell. I came back again. And I don't know. I haven't fully yet pinpointed what happened, but something changed in me, internally, and I feel stronger and more courageous because of that experience, even though I didn't mean it to happen. But yeah, so that kind of brings an end to my third week here on my pilgrimage in the Holy Land. It's been quite an adventure, and it continues to be so. And I'll just end off with this lovely note. When I was walking through the streets of Palestine, just not sure where I was or what was exactly happening, this little girl on the side of the road, she gave me this beautiful smile, just, ear to ear, this beautiful smile. And I still see her face, and just that peace that brought to me, and that feeling of love and happiness. I don't know, it was so beautiful. And I thought, she doesn't know what she did to me, but her smiling at me gave me this reassurance and feeling of love when I was in this place that I didn't know what I was doing or what was going on. So yeah, just had the power of a smile. So those are my thoughts and my experiences from my third week on my pilgrimage. So stay safe, take care, God bless, bye-bye.